The retirement sweet spot. This is a topic that you kind of see in the media and, what would you say, Martin? Every couple times a year you see the news articles.
Tables and
exactly,
yeah. Are you better off with having less money?
Yeah, and a lot of people want to know what the sweet spot is. And I reckon at the outset, Martin, that in theory the sweet spot is if your super balance is just under, or your total assets outside the home is just under if there's a couple, the threshold to get the maximum age pension.
Full age pension, yeah.
And still have a good quality of life and maybe own your home and all that stuff. And there could be some ways that people can achieve that sweet spot. It doesn't have to be the case study we're talking about today.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. There's different ways, and the balance of that is that you still want to have some capital access, so money in cash or super, but yes, fully maximising the government entitlements that you can get.
Yeah, so today's episode, joined by Martin McGrath from Financial Edge Group. He's a regular pest on the podcast with me. Let's break this down. Tell us the current situation of the case study, and what I might do, I'll just flag everyone. If you are watching on YouTube, you will see, I'll share the screen and you will see the spreadsheet.
Yep.
And we'll get right into the numbers, straight to the neck with this episode.
Yep.
But we might do that right now.
This is a podcast that will help you plan and execute one of the biggest moments in your life. That's retirement. You'll learn how to set up your finances in a way that benefits you, your lifestyle goals, and keeps you in the know within this complex world of money and investing. Your host is Glen James, former financial advisor, author, and host of the popular Money, Money, Money podcast. Glen is joined by experts in various fields around the topic of retirement in Australia. Any advice in this podcast is of a general nature. Full details are in the show notes of this episode. You only retire once, so make sure you retire right.
Okay, Martin, I might get you to run us through the current situation of a client, and they've given you permission to share this. We're keeping it anonymous. We're keeping the location anonymous, but it really is a really good case study.
Yeah, so it's pretty common. It's a conversation I suppose I have all the time with different clients in different scenarios, either leading up to retirement, we're ready to retire, is this our permanent house, are we going to change it, how does it affect the age pension, or at a different stage of life in the age pension, hey, we're thinking about changing, moving closer to the kids or the grandkids or further away from the kids or the grandkids, and how's that going to impact my pension? And because of the way that the Centrelink rules are set up, your assets and different assets are assessed in different ways, i.e. cash and super is assessed. By default, the value of your home is not assessed. So in this case, we're talking about this person owns their own home, has a decent balance in super, but is considering, it's a couple, considering moving locations. As part of that, they're likely going to need some money out of their super. So before they did that, they wanted to check with me two parts. One, can we afford to do it? And will we run out of money? And B, what impact's that going to have? Are we going to get more pension or less pension?
Yeah, and can we actually do this?
Yes, is this going to work?
So, all right, so let's have a look here. I've got the spreadsheet up, which just has the current situation. I'll just start here. We'll assume both of them are age 71/72, 71, early 70s. Now, interestingly enough, we are talking about someone who is currently on Centerlink and who is retired, who is effectively, quote unquote, upgrading the house in terms of a price increase because, as you said, they've had to move to another location for whatever reason. So walk us through what they're on right now.
Yeah, so in terms of current situation, their super balance is around $660,000. They've got two accounts. Doesn't matter whose name's that in. Because they're both over 67, it's assessed. So they're both in pension phase, about $660,000, and they're drawing down a regular pension from that. They're drawing just the minimum, and that equates to about $33,000 a year.
So for the sake of this case study, we might just make it clear, for those who might be new, the minimum pension is their superannuation pension. So we might just call it Centerlink and pension.
True.
So if you hear the word pension, it's not Centerlink, it's your own pension.
Fair point. The pension we're using refers to your money out of your super. So they're receiving about $33,000 a year out of their super. They're getting that on, I think, a fortnightly or a monthly basis. Because of their asset threshold, they own their own home, and that's worth around $700,000 in the location they're in. Centrelink doesn't assess that, but they do assess their super. They're assessed as a couple, and so these thresholds change. If you're single or a couple or a homeowner, we won't go all that through all of that today, but they're getting a part pension because their assets are below the cutoff, which is around about $1 million at the moment, but it's above the full pension threshold, which is around $400,000.
So combined super balance for the two 71-year-olds is about $665.
Yeah.
Is about half in each name, or is there 200 in one and the rest of the other?
Yeah, it's close enough to half in each name. But even if one had 100 and the other one had 500, it wouldn't actually change it if they're both over 67.
Yeah. And this is the interesting thing if you are kind of new to this retirement world. Leading up to age 67, if there is a different age between spouses, that's when strategy can come into play to maybe, we'll use the word hide super.
Legally hide.
Super in a lower spouse's name who is well under 67 if one of the couple is retiring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in this case, they're both over 67, so that's fine. They're getting a part pension from Centerlink, or part payment from Centerlink of around about $25,000 per annum. Yep. It comes in on a fortnightly basis, so it's a bit under $1,000 a fortnight. So $25,000 a year from Centerlink, $33,000 a year from their super pension, gives them around $58,000 a year.
So you've got here assumed living costs. Are we saying, they've pretty much said we just need $1,000 a week because we own the house.
Yeah. They own the house. They might do some trips here and there, but most week to week or over the year, they think they need about $1,000 a week. So that's what we've used in this example. So they've got enough coming from both of their payments to cover that living cost. If they want more from Centrelink, well, you can't just ask Centrelink for any more. But if they do want more from their super fund, they are allowed to take more, either as a lump sum or a regular basis. But in this case, they've said they're pretty comfortable with that.
So the starting assets, you've got $675. Should that be $665?
No, so
what's the 10,000 difference?
Yeah, so there's a bit of cash personally if you got your car or contents.
Yep.
So that's also relevant that we're talking about what's in super, but Centrelink do factor in some other assets there. So there's a slight difference there because of that. And the house is worth around $700, and so their starting assets are about 1.37 give or take, but Centrelink don't factor in the value of the house.
Now, the other little section at the bottom, it's slightly different. Can you walk us through? You've got a line item that says super cash, house, and then total of 1.263. Why is this different than the 112,000 from the other assets in the house?
Yeah, so this is a projection as to where they will end up in 17 years.
Right.
So what I've done for these individuals is that they're actually an ongoing client at the moment to show them, even though it says at the top, they've obviously got enough to cover what they need to.
Basically, so they pay you an ongoing fee?
They pay an ongoing fee, and that's factored into these calculations.
And so just on that, because there's a lot of chat always about ongoing advice fees, and I'll just pause. Given that they're an existing client of yours, they've called up one day and said, hey, we're thinking about changing locations. What do we do? And because they're an ongoing client, you basically do these numbers for them as part of that package?
Exactly. Okay. So they have a formal scheduled meeting in once a year, and we had that. But we got a phone call saying, hey, I'm thinking about this. They kind of flagged in the past and said, oh, well, could it work? Yes, we'll discuss it when it happens. So caught up a few weeks ago. We're thinking about this. So on that phone call, I could just give them some high-level confidence of, yes, you can. If you want access to money out of super, you can take it out tax-free. It will have a play on the impact. Let me check the numbers. And then I suppose, with their permission, went away and started to prepare some of these numbers.
Basically, and I just wanted to jump in there because we've always got new listeners, and financial advice fees and financial advice can be daunting for people. But basically on that phone call, there was almost this verbal, in principle, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Let me do some work in the background.
Yeah. The value of that 2-minute or 5-minute phone call, they're obviously sitting over the table having a coffee thinking, oh, could we do this or not? now we just visited the grandkids. Maybe it would be nice to live closer to them, but the house is more expensive. Let's give Martin a call.
And see if what's possible.
Is it possible?
Yeah.
And
awesome.
so from that point, I could either say, no, not at all, or yes, I think it is. Let's book in a meeting in addition to their scheduled formal meeting.
Yeah.
No extra cost for that meeting. Let's book in some meeting. Give me some high-level numbers to run, and let me take you through that in that meeting and make some informed decisions.
And I don't want to, I do want to move on, but I see these little things that I want to just dig in the trenches along the way. So ordinarily the ongoing fee, it includes the annual meeting, but you're more than happy. And I think a lot of advice businesses would be more than happy to have an ad hoc meeting as needed throughout the year.
Yeah, every advisor model is different, but yes, if they said, Martin, can you prepare 17 different scenarios and we're inheriting $1 million? Well, that's going to be an extra cost and a lot of extra time. But something like this, particularly, I suppose, the way our business operates is that this is what we're there for.
Yep.
We want to be someone to pick up the phone and have these conversations.
Perfect. Okay, well, back to the cricket. So if we did nothing is what you're saying.
If we did nothing and they live for the 17 years and they both pass away on the same day, where are they going to get to or what's their estate going to get to? And this is relevant for later when we consider the alternate option. Their super and their cash will diminish. It will go down over time, going from, say, 675 down to 560,000 is what our software, based upon certain assumptions, is saying. These figures we're talking about are in today's dollars. This has been adjusted back. It will be higher in future value, but the spending power is in today's dollars. And if they don't change the home's still going to be worth, in today's dollars, 700,000. So A, gives them the confidence they're not going to run out. But I suppose B, their assets will be steady, keep pace with inflation, etc., but go down slightly over time.
Why did you use 88 as the expectancy of life?
That's based upon if you're a 71-year-old today, the life expectancy tables are statistically 50% of people will live to another 17 years. Some people might not live that long. Some people might live longer. But that's our software that we use, and we adjust that every year.
But you can basically say if you live to 100, this is what...
Exactly.
Okay.
You do all these different scenarios, but yeah, based upon that, that's what life expectancy would be.
And now you've got here life, the future value or the value of the age pension, the Centerlink, you've got it 709,000. So we basically saying over the next 17 years, you have a $709,000 annuity.
Yep.
If you both live to age 88, that's how much the Centrelink payment is worth to you.
Yeah, exactly. So they're getting $25,000 a year at the moment for another 17 years, and that's going to go up because of inflation. So this one I have used future value just for comparison. They will get future, again, projected on these assumptions. They'll get $700,000 back from the Australian government as an age pension over that period of time for the next 17 years if they don't change anything in their life.
On that, the negative 112 in red, is that just the difference between where we're at right now and then fast forward 17 years, we keep the status quo, your wealth would decrease over the next 17 by 112,000
in today's dollars. We know that in 17 years the house is going to be worth more than that. Yeah. But yes, that's what the decrease is. So they can retain most of their capital if that's a priority for them to pass that on. But it will be eaten into a little bit just because of the pensions needed to be drawn out.
Awesome. When they said to you, we want to upgrade, their current house is worth 700. How much have they said? Like, they're like, oh, do we want to buy an $800,000 house or $5 million? Like, what was the conversation?
Yeah, so it's a range. I think again, depends on what they haven't got a real estate agent out yet to get the exact value. They don't know exactly what the area they're going to buy in, but it's assumed to be around a $200,000 to $250,000 increase between the sale price and the purchase price. And so I always prefer to overcompensate. We're going to have to pay
be a bit conservative,
an agent, pay some stamp duty, etc. So I've allowed $300,000 that goes towards that house purchase. Yeah. But the difference between the sale price and the purchase price is potentially $200,000 to $250,000 plus other costs just associated.
Yeah. So there is a chance, they've said, oh, we think it's worth 700. There's a chance it could sell for 750.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, when we get back, we'll look at what the numbers look like if we want to buy a house for more.
Exactly.
We'll be back right after this.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. If you would like help based on your own personal situation, head over to retireright.com.au, click Get Help, and we'd be happy to introduce you to one of our trusted professionals. Our panel of vetted financial advisors and mortgage brokers work with people all over Australia so they can connect with you wherever you are. That's retireright.com.au and click Get Help.
Okay, we're back. Now, if you are watching on YouTube, during the break, we did fix the typo in the word Centerlink. We pay Martin...
Attention to details.
Yeah, well, we don't pay you for how good you can type.
No.
We pay you how good you can crunch.
The numbers are spot on.
That's right. Okay, so if we go back, I'm going to now reshare this and we'll walk people through it. So you've basically now said if they spent $300,000 on a new house. Mm-hmm. So you've pretty much said, this is what it looks like if you go and spend $1 million on the next house.
Yep.
Knowing that your current one might sell for $700, $750 or thereabouts. Yep. Okay.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, and this could be different. If the house sells for $800, they can spend 1.1. If someone else's situation, the house is worth 1.5, it could be 1.7.
Or if the house sells for $800, they can buy 1.1 or take less money out of the super.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So we're using an assumption for this, but yes, obviously everyone's situation could be different, and this client situation probably will be different.
Yeah.
But what I like to do, and most people would do in this case, is slightly overcompensate it. So hopefully they get.
Do you overcompensate in other parts of your life? Don't answer that.
Not regularly.
Okay, so on this, you've assumed that the super is reducing from $665 down to $365.
Yeah.
What does that do to Centrelink? And repeat the before and after.
Yeah. So can they take money out of super to go towards the house? Yes. They're over 65, they're retired, they can take that money out tax-free. So that's important. They're not going to have any headaches in that regard. Which super fund to take it off, how much out of the husband or the wife, or which investments out of the super fund, I'll discuss with them, and that's kind of personal preference. But that's also, you're just giving these people an in principle, we can make it happen, and I can work out the details and formally you're giving the formal advice, you're paying me to figure out the detail when I need to.
Yes.
So super's going to go from 665 to 365. That's going to take a process. It's going to take a few weeks and months, etc. There'll be deposits to pay, but let's fast forward 3 months.
Yep.
They've moved to the new place. House is gone. Super's gone down.
Yep.
We go back to Centerlink, or we help them log on to Centerlink and go, hey, my address has changed, but by the way, my assets have changed.
So you do that on your client's behalf?
We do that as part of our ongoing service. That's part of what they pay for, is that we...
So advisors, and this is what I'm so out of touch. So, gosh, it's embarrassing. So you can have authority to log into Centerlink on behalf of your client, update the data, click go, and it'll tell you, from next pay,
you get
increase.
Adjustment.
Okay, perfect.
Correct. Yeah. So importantly, you said in there, have the authority.
Yes,
we can't.
absolutely.
We're not hacking into everyone's MyGov. There's a special form to sign. As long as you're an advisor with a certain authority, you can have a business Centerlink profile and add clients with authority and remove clients with authority. And yes, that's part of our service. With the client's permission, we'll log on and update. And again, we can get that tangent on, but Centerlink's not a set and forget. Things change. There are some things that are data fed to Centerlink, but it's actually not that much. So your bank account balance with Centerlink that you haven't updated for 7 years needs to be updated. The car value you told Centerlink when you first applied 4 years ago and you said, I've got a car worth $30,000. They don't know if you've changed that car, you've upgraded, you've downgraded, you've got a dent in it. Might be worth $10,000 today. You might be getting less pension per fortnight because you haven't updated that. We do that as part of our service to clients, but I would encourage anyone who's currently receiving an age pension or helping mum and dad getting an age pension, help them log on or check the last statement they might have got in the mail, because there might be some balances on there that are very old, and it's not Centerlink's job to update that and pay you more. It's your responsibility.
And one of the reasons you need to be on top of this, number one, you could be entitled to a higher fortnightly age pension. But number two, if there is an issue and they're overpaying you $100 a week and you haven't changed that for 4 years,
that's a lot of weeks.
have you got 20 grand to pay back? Or how does that, just quickly, I know we've got to do this, Casey. If someone owed Centrelink 20 grand, they're obviously just not going to turn the tap off. Are they going to garnish that and do a re-garnish payment
plan? It's on
plan?
negotiation.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Yeah,
okay.
They'll offer you to pay it in full if you wish to.
Yeah.
But they'll also work with you and go, hey, I can't afford to pay that in full.
But take $20 a week off for the rest of my life. Okay, cool. Okay, so we've done the wash up.
So we've updated
Sorry about
Centerlink.
the tangents, everyone. I just like to.
We've done that, or they've done
learn.
that, or someone's done that. Log back on Centerlink. My super's now worth $365. I've still got my car. I've still got a bit in cash. Because of that, and again, this is a real situation, they're actually now reduced their assessable assets for Centerlink. Their house is worth more, but the super's worth less. So in this case, their pension's going to increase. They were previously getting $25,000 per annum. They're now going to receive close to the full pension, or basically the full pension of $45,000 a year.
Wow.
This is for a couple. If you're single, the numbers are different. So that's going to increase to $45,000 a year, an extra $20,000 a year from the government. They've got less in their super. They could still take the same amount out, but because they're getting more money from Centrelink, they're going to take less out of their own super pension, and they'll continue to draw the minimum, which is in this case now around $18,000 a year. So their cash flow is actually improved to $63,000 a year.
Gosh.
When it was previously $58,000 a year.
Well, how about that?
Not a bad result.
But awesome. But how long do we still get? 17 years of money.
We've got not quite half, but we've got less in super now. Is it still going to last as long?
Yeah. So, okay, the not burying the lead, by upgrading the house from 700 to $1 million, we've moved 300-ish out of super. We're living in a more expensive house. Centrelink an extra 20 grand a year up to the full pension, and the super pension drops by around 15 grand a year, and we've still got some fat if needed.
Still at a decent super balance, and we're potentially closer into that sweet spot.
Yep. So now if we look at the next 17 years, the starting asset for super is no longer, or the starting assets.
The starting assets,
they're no longer 385. They're no longer 675. They're 385.
Yep. Yeah.
The house, you've left it $1 million. So it's basically the same starting assets. They just moved.
And I've simplified some things here because there might be some stamp duty bits and pieces, etc.
And you'd have to assume probably 30 grand stamp or whatever.
Yeah. But give or take, your assets haven't changed much. They're just in the house versus in super. But the cash flow is changing from Centrelink. And so if we project, and using the software to project for the next 17 years, where do they end up? Well, they're still going to have this $1 million house. But what's actually going to happen is, because they're getting so much more from Centrelink, and if assuming their lifestyle hasn't changed, we're still using the same 52,000. What we're actually saying, if they get 63, they're going to start to actually build up a bit of cash. Mm-hmm. And so they're starting with basically assets of 380. They're going to end up with assets of 412.
Amazing, isn't it? So the wash up is, instead of over the next 17 years, the overall situation, instead of them being down 112,000, they're actually up 27,000.
27,000. Correct.
But isn't financial advice not worth it? Don't answer that. Sorry. And this is everyone, like, I know I'm in this world every day, but I see the value in paying a professional for advice, like full disclosure.
How much tax have we saved them here? Nothing. But how much peace of mind have we delivered and taken a burden and some paperwork off them and complexity at a time when they're young at 70, but there's a complexity here and there's paperwork, etc. And again, this was started from, visiting to kids and grandkids and going, oh, we really enjoyed that, but we can't afford to live there, can we? Can we afford to? I don't know. Maybe let's ask Martin if we can afford to live there. And then things just, and if they said the houses there are $3 million, well, that phone call would have been a pretty quick one saying, good idea, but I don't think we can.
Yeah.
But they thought that leap up to $1 million house was going to be too expensive. I said, well, I think it could work. Let me run the numbers. And the numbers tell that story.
Now, with the increased age pension from Centrelink, the total value of that is over $1 million as opposed to 300,000, as opposed to 700,000. So there's an extra 300,000 from the government over the next 17 years.
Yep.
Provided everything stays as projected indexes.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, government could change rules, but the rules today around the age pension is that, yes, they will get the full pension. That will increase every year. That's going to average to about $60,000 a year in future value that they're going to receive from the age pension, which totals about $300,000.
So this here where you said $3 for every $1,000. So talk to us about this little comment that you made here.
So how does this work? Money's just not free. How does this magically come together? It's to do with these individuals are part pensioners. If they were full pensioners, if their super started at $300 at the starting point and they wanted to spend all that and they end up with zero in super, they wouldn't get any more age pension.
No, so it is really the sweet spot if you do have
if you can move some money when you and now I'm not saying everyone else should move suburbs and spend $300,000, but this can apply to, hey, can we afford that trip overseas? It's going to cost $10,000. Hey, I have a conversation with my mum. She's a part pensioner. I'm thinking about paying the house, but it costs too much. It's going to cost $10,000. I'm not sure if I can afford to do that. Now, it's different if you're going to buy a house or buy some shares or move it from super to cash. They're all assessable assets. But if you're going to spend it and consume it, or if you're going to put it into a house, either upgrading the house, a new house, or upgrading your existing house, we want to do the bathrooms. They're going to cost $10,000. If you go and take that $10,000 out of cash, put it into the bathroom, and you go back to Centerlink and say, I've just spent that $10,000 on the house. The following fortnight, if you're a couple, you'll get an extra $30,000 a fortnight. Doesn't sound like much.
$30,000 a fortnight. No.
So that actually does sound like a lot.
Yeah.
You will get an extra $30 a fortnight. Now, that's per fortnight. You add that up for a whole year, that's $780. You add that up for 10 years, that's $7,800. So you add that up for 17 years, you're going to get that $10,000 back by getting some extra pension every single fortnight. So it's a bit of a way of spending your money and having your cake and eating it too, because the government's basically reimbursing you or increasing your pension by you consuming that money.
So on that, everyone's situation's different. This would have also looked different if they said, we want to move closer to the grandkids, we want to spend an extra $300,000, and we also have got a bit of interest in maybe doing the caravan. So can we pull money out of super and do another $60,000 for a caravan? So I just need to say that every client that you talk to, it's not a cookie cutter. You actually look at their current situation.
Yep.
Because it just worked out that in this scenario, a couple, early 70s, 600-ish between the two of them, by moving $300,000 effectively offline from Centerlink into a property, overall they're better off.
Exactly. And yeah, I wouldn't disagree that if they were 67 versus 71, might be different. Potentially, yes. In their case, they're very comfortable on $1,000 a week, no tax, no mortgage, etc. But if they needed or wanted 75 or 80,000 a year, these numbers would look different because they probably need more in super for it to come down.
We need an extra $20,000 a year for travel as well.
Yeah, because that will deplete the assets or the super faster. So they can and probably should spend more than 52, and I'll talk to them about that as part of this. But they would all be different, which is why I suppose the ability to have some or access to some complex calculators and help someone guiding it through. But the principles here apply.
You said complex calculators. A lot of the free stuff you get online, number one, they might not be complex enough, or number two, people might not know how to use them correctly.
No, I think it's a combination of two, that some of those calculators are good, but the inputs that you put into them really, you can put any numbers in there to make it look really good, but if they don't apply to your situation, or if you're not going to hold yourself accountable to that situation, then they're just not going to work.
Now, at the risk of insulting you, I want to get your view on this comment from my own view of financial projections. And when I was practicing, projections are awesome, but we've pretty much said to these people, you've said to these people, like, if you do this, you're sweet for 17 years, right?
Yep.
The way that I view projections, it's more if you do this right now, the little razzle-dazzle change, 3 years' time, we rock up and it's done, you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love hanging my hat on 17 years down the road because this doesn't take into consideration if someone died in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to caution, and I don't know if you would agree, don't hang your hat on that 17-year projection.
Mm-hmm.
Just know that if we did it now, the trend or the vibe or we think it's going to be okay, but obviously year on year we'll be checking. There could be a year it's like, hey guys, you've said you had to get your knees done. I think you should make the call whether instead of spending $5,000 on a holiday this year, we'll spend it on the knee and don't go away this year.
Yeah. And I think why I could do this relatively quickly for these individuals because we actually do this every year.
Right.
And so I just had the current column, I didn't have to put, that was there from their last meeting. And so I just copied and pasted it. But exactly to that point that if circumstances change, Martin, we're getting a divorce. How's it? Oh, okay, perhaps we shouldn't have bought that house. Hey, Martin, one of us has passed away, or we need to help the kids. We need to give them the $100,000 gift, or we've got less in super now to do that gift. There's obviously, these are based upon assumptions, and assumptions obviously are certain assumptions. We don't know what we don't know, and also we don't get too hung up on it because most any government changes are grandfathered. So if you're in the system, you're in the system, but maybe in 10 years' time or 17 years' time, the value of your house might be included in the age pension calculation, which it's not today. It never has been, so I can't see that on the horizon.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
Their things could change, but based upon the information we have today, exactly, the direction for the next 2 or 3 or 5 years, this is going to work.
The trend is good.
The trend is really good. And again, in this situation, they've still got that asset in the house. If it was, Martin, can we gift $300,000 to a friend and we're never going to get that money back? Well, I'll run the projections, but there's a risk there. Whereas they're just moving it from one asset to a different asset. I've got a high level of confidence that it's going to work. But things could change. They might not like that suburb. The kids might move and they might want to sell again and change. So
one further role play, if they had their house worth $700,000 and they'd been in there for 20 years and they loved the area and all that and they still had this super, when they would come in for a review, you would know that, hey, like, as you said before, if you wanted to renovate the house, if you tomorrow pulled out $300,000 and renovated the house, which would be decent renovation,
Yeah.
I don't know, depends when you're listening to this, but building costs, but you'd be able to get a kitchen and a couple of bathrooms and a floor done and paint for $300,000. I would go out on a limb. That could change their quality of life overnight and still not have a financial impact.
Yeah, and the same numbers would apply other than we'd get less real estate agents and stamp duty cost. But yes, they'd still be the same numbers, would look exactly the same.
And one step further, and this is where the psychology of retirement can come into play, this current situation, if they kept the house that they were happy with, that didn't need renovation, they had all this money, it's like, hey guys, like, you're still young and healthy. If you did want to start to do some travel, we categorically know if you did spend $20,000 a year on a holiday for the next 5 years, you do not have a financial problem in your life.
Yeah.
Because as you draw that down, each month Centerlink's going to top that up.
Yeah.
But that's the psychology play, which I think so many Australians are going to have this problem with. We've spent all this time accruing all this wealth, and now we've got all this money. We've never spent $20,000 a year on vacation. It's a big thing, isn't it?
It's a big shift. It's a big change. I think we discussed that in previous podcasts about annuities and different things to encourage that. But yeah, having these calculations or some level of projections, ideally giving someone the confidence of, well, we can do that and it won't impact that. And yeah, that's the different situations. And again, throwing it out there as well, if the opposite happens, which we do have conversation with clients, hey, we're going to downsize our $1 million house and move into a $600 house. Is that going to impact our pension? Yes, it will. arguably the reverse of these figures is what that might look like.
The wash up is you'll be fine financially.
Still got plenty of assets there, etc. And perhaps at that point we gift to the kids or the grandkids and et cetera, but having these scenarios to play around with and having someone to talk through with to give you the confidence of, oh, this is going to be okay. We can afford to do that.
When you do the super projections over the next, 10 years or whatever, you factor in fees for the super fund itself and your advice fees?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So it's pretty accurate-ish.
Yeah. And I'm happy to say on the record, these projections that we based upon here are a balanced portfolio, which typically is about 60% growth assets and 40% defensive.
Yeah.
And we use as per our guidelines and our kind of insurers allow us to use a 5.6% a year return.
Okay.
That's what's been factored into these figures.
So that's 3% plus inflation-ish. So it's pretty achievable.
They're the words you're saying, and that's what I would also say, and that's why I suppose our licensees and insurers are allowed to have you to use it. These aren't inflating, assuming this works if you get a 10% a year return.
But we don't want to be around the risk corner of the world to try and get that return.
So yes, these factor in the returns, they factor in the fees, but also they're not inflated or unrealistic in that regard. We would hope and assume, and history has shown, that we can achieve that return and higher. But yes, we need to obviously factor that in various ways.
Sweet. Well, everyone, if you found this episode useful, please share it with a friend or family member, and hopefully you've got the confidence to, retire right. My name is Glen James and Martin McGrath from Financial Edge Group. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Glenn. Fun one.
It was. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. If you want to support us, there is one way you can do that. You can send the episode to a friend, a family member, or your group chat if you think those people would find it valuable. We also thank you for leaving a review on Apple or Spotify. If you've listened to this podcast for some time, or if you've read any of my books, you would know that giving and generosity in a financial sense is a big thing in my life. If you think it's time that you are ready to give financially to a good cause, you could head to our website, moneypodcast.com.au/charities to see the charities that we support.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive Pty Ltd, trading as Retire Right Australia, and Glen James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds Financial Service Licence 451289. Martin McGrath, Financial Edge Group, and their employed financial advisors are authorised representatives of Synchron Advice AFSL 243313. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the hosts or the publisher or their respective licence holders.